He is Rachel Mellon's father, the biological father of Rachel. Your daughter is beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
This is the story of a winter day so bitter that breathing hurt. January 31st, 1996, in Bolingbrook, Illinois. The temperature had plunged to 20 degrees below zero, turning the suburban streets into a frozen wasteland. But inside a modest home on Melissa Drive, 13-year-old Rachel Mellon-Skemp stayed warm in her bed, wrapped in her favorite blue blanket, fighting a sore throat. By sunset, that blanket would be the only trace left of her. No coat, no shoes, no wallet. Nothing a teenage girl would need to survive in the Arctic cold. Just an empty bed, 2 missing pillows, and a stepfather with fresh scratches on his arms. For 28 years, the questions have haunted her family. Why did her stepfather choose that brutal day to walk the dog? What made Rachel write that chilling diary entry months before? And why was a disturbing book about father-daughter relationships hidden under her mattress? Some stories fade with time, but Rachel's has only grown louder, darker, more urgent. This is the story of a bright young girl who loved the Beatles, dreamed of teaching, and deserved to grow up. This is the unsolved disappearance of Rachel Mellon-Skemp. Long before she became a haunting headline, Rachel Marie Mellon-Skemp was a little girl with dreams as bright as her smile. Born on October 13, 1982, in Melrose Park, Illinois, she entered the world with a spirit that would touch everyone around her, even if her time here would be tragically short. Rachel's early years were marked by change. At age 3, her parents' divorce split her world between 2 states. Her mother Amy stayed in Illinois, while her father Jeff moved to Dallas, Texas. But Rachel, with her remarkable resilience, found ways to spread joy wherever she went. The main thing I remember is her positive spirit, Jeff would later say, his voice thick with emotion. No matter what, she wanted everyone else to be happy. Enter Vincent Mellon, Rachel's new stepfather. The family grew with the addition of 2 half-siblings, a brother in 1988 and a sister in 1990. They settled into a seemingly picture-perfect life in Bolingbrook, where Rachel blossomed into a stellar student at B.J. Ward Middle School. To the outside world, Rachel was thriving. Her infectious laugh echoed through school hallways, and her creativity spilled onto every page she wrote. Her best friend Carrie Johnson recalls a girl wise beyond her years, an old soul who found joy in simple pleasures like Beatles songs and weekend camping trips. Even her pastor, Reverend Frank Peoples, saw something special in her, calling her one of the brightest and sweetest kids you wanted to meet. But darkness lurked beneath the surface of this seemingly idyllic life. In 1990, the family's facade cracked when police responded to a disturbing call. Vincent had allegedly pushed Amy down a flight of stairs during an argument. Though Amy filed for a restraining order, she later dropped it and welcomed him back home. Then came 1995, a year that would reveal deeper troubles. Rachel ran away, leaving behind a heartbreaking note. She feared being blamed for her siblings' actions. That summer, during what would be her final visit to Texas, she made a desperate plea to her uncle, begging him to help her move there permanently. The last time her father heard her voice was Christmas Day, 1995. In a cruel twist of fate, they discussed her evolving music taste from pop to alternative rock. "My baby's growing up," Jeff said proudly, not knowing these would be their final words. Looking back, the signs were there, written in a teenager's diary, whispered in desperate pleas, and hidden behind a smile that masked growing fear. Rachel's story was about to take a dark turn, and the cheerful girl who lit up every room she entered was walking toward a shadow from which she would never emerge. January 30th started like any other winter day at B.J. Ward Middle School, but something was terribly wrong. Students watched in confusion as Rachel Mellon-Skemp, known for her infectious laughter and bright smile, stood crying by her locker. This wasn't the Rachel they knew. When friends approached, her response sent chills down their spines. "Don't worry about it. It's my problem. I'll deal with it." None of them realized they were witnessing Rachel's final hours at school. The next morning dawned brutally cold, the kind of day where exposed skin freezes in minutes. Rachel complained of a sore throat, earning her a day at home. But this wasn't just any sick day. As her mother, Amy, headed to work and her half-siblings trudged to school, Rachel was left alone with her unemployed stepfather, Vincent Mellon. At 10:45 a.m., Rachel made her last known phone call. Her grandmother, Lucy Skemp, hundreds of miles away in Texas, noticed something odd. As Rachel thanked her for Christmas presents, her usually animated voice grew distant, hesitant. Then came the moment that would haunt Lucy forever. "Is he there?" she asked. Rachel's whispered, "Yes," was followed by an abrupt goodbye. What happened in those next crucial hours remains shrouded in contradiction. Vincent's story reads like a poorly written alibi, Nintendo games with his stepdaughter, then a decision to walk the family's German Shepherd in dangerous sub-zero temperatures. He claims Duke, their dog, chased a rabbit and slipped away, a convenient explanation for his 30-minute absence. The clock ticked toward tragedy. 2:30 p.m. Vincent allegedly leaves for his implausible dog walk. 3 p.m. He returns without Duke. 3:15 p.m. Rachel's sister Ashley comes home to an empty bedroom. Between 4:30 and 5 p.m., a real estate agent returns Duke, who had somehow survived the bitter cold. But where was Rachel? It would take until 5 p.m. when Amy finally returned home for anyone to call police. By then, precious hours had slipped away like footprints in the falling snow. Hours that might have held the key to finding a 13-year-old girl who had sensed something coming but couldn't escape it. The temperature continued to drop as darkness fell on Bolingbrook. Somewhere in that frozen night, Rachel Mellon-Skemp's trail went cold, leaving behind questions that would torture investigators for decades to come. The first red flags hit investigators the moment they stepped into Rachel's bedroom. In the depths of an Illinois winter that had turned brutal, they found her coat hanging untouched in the closet. Her boots sat neatly by the door. Her wallet, filled with teenage treasures, lay undisturbed on her desk. Everything a young girl would need to survive sub-zero temperatures remained exactly where she'd left it. Only two things were missing: a blue blanket and 2 pillows from her bed. The temperature outside had plunged to 20 below zero with the wind chill, cold enough to kill in minutes. No child, especially not one as intelligent as Rachel, would venture out in such weather without protection. But something else caught the officer's eyes: angry red scratches crisscrossing Vincent Mellon's arms. His explanation about working on a car in the garage didn't match the fresh marks that looked more like desperate defense wounds. But what investigators found next turned their blood colder than the winter air outside. Hidden beneath Rachel's pillow, a steak knife spoke of sleepless nights and growing fear. On her bookshelf, an out-of-print volume titled Daddy's Kisses seemed grotesquely out of place in a teenage girl's room, its contents dealing with the darkest kind of father-daughter relationship. These weren't random items, they were silent screams for help. Then came the diary. Written in Rachel's own hand, dated August 1995, the entry revealed a horror that had been playing out behind closed doors. In chilling detail, she described how Vincent had entered her room, demanded she remove his shirt, then kissed her. His excuse, that he was teaching her to recognize predatory behavior, read like a predator's twisted justification. Each piece of evidence painted a darker picture: the missing blanket and pillows, the defensive scratches, the hidden knife, the disturbing book, the diary entry. Together, they began telling a story that would haunt investigators for decades to come. The story of a 13-year-old girl who saw something coming but couldn't escape it. And somewhere in that frozen landscape, Rachel Mellon-Skemp waited to be found. As winter melted into spring, the investigation into Rachel's disappearance took a sharp focus on Vincent Mellon. Each new piece of evidence seemed to point directly at the man who was last to see her alive. When investigators strapped him to a polygraph machine, his responses to key questions about Rachel's disappearance registered as deceptive, the needle jumping wildly with each denied involvement. But there was a wall standing between investigators and justice: Rachel's own mother. Amy Mellon mounted an unwavering defense of her husband, creating a shield that would help protect Vincent from prosecution. While her daughter remained missing, she stood firmly by the man many believed responsible. The investigation reached its climax in 2000 when a grand jury convened to hear the accumulated evidence. For hours, Amy Mellon testified, answering every question posed to her about her daughter's disappearance. But when Vincent took the stand, his appearance lasted barely 5 minutes. In what many investigators saw as the most telling moment of the case, he invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, choosing silence over explanation about his stepdaughter's fate. The evidence seemed overwhelming. The scratches on his arms, the failed polygraph, Rachel's disturbing diary entry, his improbable story about walking a dog in lethal cold, and finally, his refusal to testify. Yet despite what police believed was a compelling case, the grand jury concluded without indictments. Vincent Mellon walked free, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a family forever fractured by secrets. The investigation had reached a dead end, but for many, his 5 minutes of silence spoke volumes about what really happened on that frozen January day. In the wake of Rachel's disappearance, her family splintered into two opposing camps, each telling a radically different story about what happened that winter day in 1996. In Illinois, Jeff Skemp became a father frozen in time. For decades, he kept the same phone number, clinging to the desperate hope that somewhere, somehow, his daughter might still reach out. His voice became familiar on national television shows as he pleaded for answers about Rachel's fate. Even today, he continues to speak her name, share her story, and search for the truth that has eluded him for nearly 3 decades. "I won't stop until I know what happened to my baby girl," he often says, his voice thick with determination. But 1,000 miles away in Tennessee, a different narrative took shape. Amy and Vincent Mellon chose silence, moving south and rarely mentioning Rachel's name. When they did break their silence, it wasn't to help find Rachel. Instead, Amy filed a lawsuit against the Bolingbrook Police Department. She claimed they had unfairly targeted her husband, suggesting their focus on Vincent was merely a cover-up for their own investigative failures. The contrast couldn't be starker. A father who refuses to let his daughter be forgotten, and a mother who seems determined to bury the past along with the questions about her husband's involvement. Two parents, two perspectives, and between them, the haunting absence of a 13-year-old girl who deserved so much more than to become another cold case file. Rachel Mellon-Skemp should be celebrating her 41st birthday today. She might have become the teacher she dreamed of being, maybe with children of her own. She could be sharing new Beatles songs with her best friend Carrie, or calling her father Jeff to catch up on life. Instead, her story remains suspended in that frozen moment of 1996, forever 13 years old. But Rachel's case refuses to grow cold. In the evidence lockers of Bolingbrook Police Department, her belongings wait silently for the march of technology to reveal their secrets. Each new advance in forensic science brings fresh hope that someday, somehow, these preserved pieces of the puzzle might finally tell their story. In 2021, the frustration and pain of decades burst forth in former lead investigator Terry Riley's powerful open letter to Rachel's killer. She was a great big sister, treasured by her friends, an excellent student, funny, kind, and loving. At 13, Rachel's future stretched out before her like an endless horizon, filled with tremendous possibilities. But you stole more than just her life that day. You stole every birthday she'll never celebrate, every dream she'll never achieve, every moment of joy she'll never experience. Perhaps the most heart-wrenching testament to Rachel's legacy comes from her best friend, Carrie Johnson. On the 25th anniversary of the disappearance, her words captured the eternal pain of losing Rachel. "Your voice still echoes in my memory when I look at your pictures. That smile of yours, it didn't just light up a room, it illuminated our whole world. You were beautiful inside and out, so smart, so full of promise. Someone out there knows what happened. Someone has carried this secret for 25 years while we've carried our grief. It's time for the truth." Rachel Marie Mellon-Skemp may have vanished on that bitter January day, but she's never been forgotten. Her story lives on in the determined efforts of her father, the memories of her friends, and the unwavering commitment of investigators who refuse to let her case go cold. Somewhere between the preserved evidence and the preserved memories, Rachel's truth waits to be discovered. She deserves nothing less than justice. Someone knows something, and maybe, just maybe, they're finally ready to speak. 28 winters have passed since Rachel Mellon-Skemp vanished from her Bolingbrook home. 28 years of birthdays uncelebrated, dreams unrealized, and questions unanswered. The bitter cold that gripped Illinois that January day in 1996 seems to have frozen this case in time, preserving its mysteries and its heartache. We know the basic facts. A 13-year-old girl homesick from school, an unemployed stepfather with suspicious scratches, a missing blue blanket, and a family dog walked in lethal temperatures. We know about the diary entry that spoke of inappropriate touching, the knife hidden under a pillow, and the disturbing book that had no place in a teenage girl's room. We know about the 5 minutes of silence before a grand jury, and a mother's unwavering defense of the man many believe responsible for her daughter's disappearance. But what we don't know, what continues to haunt investigators, family members, and friends, is the final truth. What really happened in those crucial hours between Rachel's last phone call to her grandmother and her sister's discovery of an empty bedroom? What secrets lie buried beneath nearly 3 decades of silence? Someone knows. Someone has carried this knowledge through 10,220 days and nights. Someone has watched Rachel's father, Jeff, keep the same phone number for decades, hoping for a call that never comes. Someone has read Carrie's heartfelt pleas for information about her best friend. Someone has seen the pain etch deeper each year on the faces of those who loved Rachel. If you are that person, if you know what happened to Rachel Mellon-Skemp, it's not too late to speak the truth. It's not too late to lift the weight of this secret from your conscience. It's not too late to give a grieving father, a loyal best friend, and a community the answers they've sought for nearly 3 decades. Contact the Bolingbrook Police Department at 630-226-0600. You don't have to give your name. You don't have to explain why you've waited so long. You just have to tell the truth about what happened to a bright, loving 13-year-old girl who deserved so much more than to become another cold case file. Rachel deserves justice. Her family deserves peace. And somewhere between the frozen past and the present moment, the truth is waiting to thaw. If this story moved you, please help us continue our mission to shine light on cold cases like Rachel's. Hit that subscribe button to join our true crime community and never miss an episode of Unsolved Mysteries. Ring that notification bell to stay informed about developments in Rachel's case and other unsolved mysteries we're investigating. Remember, your support helps keep these stories alive and could help bring closure to families still searching for answers. Together, we can make a difference.